The behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. I have text messages, Megyn, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat, literally the Jewish Sabbath. It is dozens of texts.
Yes.
Then we start to say, hold the boat here. And to be fair, some of my really good Jewish friends are like, that's not all of us, it's all, but these are leaders too though, right? These are stakeholders, right?
Well, back in August, Megyn Kelly spoke to Charlie Kirk about some of the extreme pressure that they both were facing in order to agree with anything and everything that the Israeli government demanded of them. And the topic actually came back again yesterday with Megyn Kelly essentially referencing their exchange on social media. But all that did was lead to a fresh round of backlash toward Kelly, including from a group of vocal critics who absolutely demanded that she disavow Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and essentially sever ties with them. And I have to say, whatever you might think about all the different figures involved in the story, I am gonna give Megyn Kelly major props for her reaction, her response. So we'll get to them in a second, but first a bit of context. So the right wing has been debating this letter that Charlie Kirk sent to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in May of this year. Now, Netanyahu had referenced that letter, or at least one part of that letter, in interviews that he did shortly after Charlie Kirk was violently and viciously assassinated. And he also claimed that Charlie Kirk was, a huge supporter, highly supportive of Israel. Others like Owens and Carlson, though, disputed that narrative. Okay, so look, I'll give you guys a little bit of background. I don't think that I'm disclosing anything that's not allowed, but if you guys can remember, I was on Tucker Carlson's show at one point this year, and I got a text message from Tucker Carlson shortly after it aired. And he told me that Charlie Kirk loved it. He thought it was an excellent conversation. And Charlie would like you to go on his show to talk about these issues. And so it was basically Tucker's way of letting me know that Charlie Kirk liked what I had to say about Israel and wanted to discuss it further on his podcast. Now, obviously, I hadn't gone on Charlie Kirk's podcast before he was assassinated, but I do think that he had criticisms of what Israel is carrying out in Gaza. He had been on the record, he was very vocal against invading Iran for a regime change war. Now the full letter has come out and I've read it. And to be honest with you, that letter does not make it appear as though Charlie Kirk hated Netanyahu. But there had been other criticisms that he had either uttered himself, not as strongly in terms of criticism, but he had slowly but surely started criticizing some of the conduct of the Israeli government. That's not really shocking or surprising if you've been paying attention to this story. Now, in that letter, for the most part, Kirk shied away from any strong criticism of Israel. Instead, he advised Netanyahu and his government to essentially work on social media outreach in order to stop young conservative Americans from turning against Israel. And so yesterday, Kelly posted about her conversation with Kirk, writing, "The Charlie Kirk letter to Bibi is interesting for obvious reasons, but if you want to hear Charlie in his own words speaking to a friend regarding his feelings on Israel and the pressure on him, it's all here on August 6th. No filter needed. Just listen to him." And he was very upset in that conversation because he felt that the criticism that he had leveled against the Israeli government had led to smears against him, allegations that he's anti-Semitic. You get the picture. But rather than address the substance of Megyn Kelly's post, she was told by multiple people that she has to absolutely wash her hands of Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. So here's one of the responses. Florida Dad wrote on X, "If you can't separate yourself from Candace Owens, many of us are going to separate ourselves from you. We do not have to align with everyone that claims to be of the right when their motives and history are as shady as hers." And Kelly actually responded to that post in particular, saying, "Look at this. No, I have no obligation to separate myself from anyone. I run my own media company and my own show. That show is where I express my own opinions, and I will decide what not to opine on. If you need me to condemn Candace or Tucker for their opinions in order to listen to me, then I may not be for you. He's a close friend and she is under enough pressure without gratuitous shots for me. My fight is with the left, not these two. I didn't like that very last part. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all Americans. So let's have a discussion about what suits Americans as opposed to what's the best for Israel and Israel supporters. But nonetheless, overall, I really appreciated that message. She caught some heat from others as a result of that response. I'll go to that in a minute, but Cenk, I wanted to get your thoughts first.
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts, but I'm also curious about the audience's thoughts here because we've got an interesting live audience that's mixed politics. So we're doing something on the live chat, and I like it when you guys are part of the show. Will Megyn Kelly gain or lose support because of this? Okay, and I'm curious what you guys think of that. I think if she sticks with it, and there's an interesting update here about a rumor regarding Megyn Kelly that I'm going to get to in a second. But if she sticks with the stance, I think she'll gain support. In fact, to that point, Anna, I think that the Florida dad guy and all those things, other than a couple of folks who are actual influencers that we know their names and they stand with Israel, etc. I think all the rest of them, I don't think they're real right wingers. I mean, they might be right wingers who are pro-Israel, but they're mainly Israel firsters, right? So the Israel first crowd does this hilarious thing where they're like, well, everyone on the right loves Israel. And so if you're criticizing Israel or you're not condemning Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens for criticizing Israel, then you know what? All of the right wing is gonna leave you. All right, well, let's see how that turns out. Our audience is guessing that 71, 72% of you that they're not going to leave, that she's going to gain support for not criticizing Tucker and Candace, etc. Right? And that's exactly what Netanyahu's in a panic over. He's like, oh, we're losing them, right? So there was a rumor today, and which she vehemently denies, and I hope that she's telling the truth, and it's her denial made me believe that she is telling the truth, that CBS was going to offer her a large contract. Now remember, CBS bought by pro-Israel zealots, and they also bought free press and they said they said in the New York Post that they're overpaying for free press because they're pro-Israel, right? So now if they go around and go, hey, you know what, we know how to stem the tide. We'll grab Megyn Kelly and a couple other big right wingers because we really need to hold the wall on the right wing. And we'll just bribe them. We'll give them 20 million, 40 million a year. And it seems like a normal contract. They used to have those kind of giant contracts in TV back in the day when TV made a lot of money. Nobody will notice. But that way we'll say, hey, you know what? Oh, we are not telling you to be pro-Israel. We are just saying we are going to give you a lot of money, right? Just like we did with free press. But Megyn Kelly says, no, that rumor's nonsense. I didn't go to CBS. They didn't make an offer, etc. But I am a little worried that that's the next strategy. But there is one strategy they're getting massively wrong, Anna. And this whole thing of that they've done to the left for the entirety of our lives. Like if you criticize Israel an inch, anti-Semite, cancel them, fire them, right? And then later arrest, deport, etc. Now, when you do it to the right, you're doing it to the wrong hombres. Guys who've been called racist and this and sexist and every other word 1,000 times over. That stuff bounces off of them. In fact, it makes them hate you. So Israel,
that's a good point.
Please do us a favor and keep calling Megyn Kelly and Tucker and everyone else anti-Semites. Call all the right-wing influencers anti-Semites, because then the country will be in favor of the 90% in favor of the Palestinians within a couple of months. And that's partly what's spreading this like wildfire. They don't realize that they're adding fuel to the fire. They're like, oh, now all of you right-wingers, you're all terrible people. You hate Jews. You are full of hate. We should cancel you, right? Good luck with that strategy. I think that's a terrible strategy. I probably shouldn't say anything. Oh no, Israel, please do not do that.
I know, it's just so short-sighted. And I think part of the problem for Israelis who carry out that tactic is it worked for so long because it's always been the left side of the political aisle that's been critical of Israel's conduct and treatment of the Palestinian people. Now you have a growing number of right-wing voices who are willing to speak out against it, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, obviously Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. Megyn Kelly is still very much supportive of Israel, but she was willing to float the idea that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad asset. as did Charlie Kirk, by the way. And so I think you make a really great point about how calling them anti-Semites or Jew haters isn't going to work the same way that it has for the left. In fact, it's probably going to have the opposite reaction. But in regard to the reactions to Megyn Kelly's response, to calls to sever her relationship with Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, Jonah Goldberg says, so you will condemn anti-Semites on the left, not because they're anti-Semites, but because they're on the left. But you won't condemn anti-Semites who are on the right or your friends because they're not? Okay, at least that's a position, I guess. I don't think she actually believes, as I'm in the same camp, by the way, she doesn't believe that Tucker Carlson is an anti-Semite. I don't believe for a second that Tucker Carlson is an anti-Semite. I just don't. I think Tucker Carlson cares about the United States. I think like any other human being who sees endless videos and photos of little children maimed and slaughtered, he's had a negative reaction to that. And it's not about identity. It's not about religion. It's not about the Jews. It's about a specific Israeli government that is completely unhinged and carrying out atrocities with impunity. And he's willing to speak out against that. And the idea that he should be smeared as an anti-Semite for having a problem with a country that uses our weapons to carry out said atrocities is insane to me. So I'm glad that Megyn Kelly isn't falling for that trap. Joel Berry responds, loyalty to friends above all else is an admirable trait. I actually agree with that. It makes you a good friend. I'm not sure that's a luxury afforded to trustworthy journalists, though. Well, Joel, I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. For me, the fact that she's unwilling to disavow and sever ties with people who she probably doesn't even think are anti-Semitic because they're not is a good thing. And then we'll end with this exchange between Kelly and Konstantin Kisin, who of course is very supportive of the Israeli state. He says, the problem with this approach, which many on the right are taking, is that this is exactly how the left allowed its own extremists to first flourish and then to become the face of the entire movement. If you agree with Candace and Tucker, people will respect that. But to many of us, their behavior is so extreme and so deranged that the idea that it can be simply ignored because your fight is with the left doesn't wash. So I'm curious, Konstantin, a video went viral yesterday featuring a doctor at Nasser Hospital getting shot and killed with a drone attack. He got shot through a hospital window. The Israelis used a drone to do it. There's video. He's a doctor. He was in the hospital working. Is that not extreme and deranged? And more importantly, why don't you ever speak out about those atrocities? Because I sure as hell believe that you would speak out against that atrocity if it was committed by Hamas. If Hamas had that type of weaponry and did the same thing to an Israeli doctor inside an Israeli hospital, I would speak out against that atrocity because that's a disgusting act. But for some reason, it's more important to hear Megyn Kelly disavow other right-wing voices because they're not playing along with this dog and pony show in regard to the Israeli government and their military operations in Gaza and the West Bank. Yeah. And then she responded with, the more, oh God, I love, this is like my favorite tweet of hers of all time because it resonates with me so much. The more one insists that I say what one demands me to, the more committed I get in my refusal. I need everyone to put that in their pipe and smoke it, not just in regard to this context and this story, but just in general as it pertains to, yes, Megyn Kelly, but also me. Back to you, Cenk.
Yeah, so a lot to say about this. So I saw the same video of the doctor. He got shot in the head, by the way. Israel didn't claim he's a terrorist or anything. They're like, no, we're just randomly executing doctors in Gaza. By the way, it's a twofer. Not only do you murder the doctor, but you also prevent him from treating injured Palestinians and kids and stuff like that, so they can die too. The Israeli government at this point are obvious terrorists. They have a worse civilian kill ratio than Hamas does, and they've killed 500 times the number of children. So it is a terrorist state right now, and if you're offended by that and want to call me an anti-Semite, I laugh at you. I laugh at you at the top of my lungs. I think you're a buffoon who's a racist and a bigot against Palestinians, and you don't mind them being murdered, and I find you to be morally repugnant. So what's interesting to me is that the right wing hasn't experienced this at all. Like, that's such an amazing thing. Like, we've experienced it our whole lives because I guess they've never ever criticized Israel before. And there's a reason why, I'm gonna get to that in a second. But now that for the first time, they just smidge of criticism to Israel, boom, they get hit with the same blast of, you're an anti-Semite, cancel them, ruin them, right? And they're like, whoa, what is this? Well, welcome to our world. That's the world we've been living in this whole time. And so thank you for mustering up the courage to criticize a foreign government, especially when you're on the right. That should be a relatively easy ask. But no, Constantine and others say there should be an exception for Israel. So cancel culture is terrible, terrible, unless you're doing it for Israel. Then of course, cancel culture is the best. Cancel anyone who criticizes Israel. Anti-Semitic, cancel, right? So that we're totally used to it. And Constantine, you could do, and look, there's some small number of things I agree and respect Constantine on. There's a lot of things we disagree on, but this opinion is ridiculous. And by the way, does not speak for the right wing at all. That's the other thing that's so arrogant about the Israeli supporters. They're like, I will speak on behalf of the whole country and the right wing. We all think that everyone who disagrees is an anti-Semite. You don't speak for anyone, dude. Look at the polls, look at the polls. You lost the right wing, you lost the left wing, and now, this important thing that they're doing here is another tactic, again, the left is very used to, now the right is beginning to find out about. Smear by proxy. Oh, Tucker said something that Jonah Goldberg thought was anti-Semitic. Ooh, okay, wow, I'll have to take that under consideration. So that means Megyn Kelly, you are smeared by proxy. Why? Did you say Tucker Carlson is the greatest thing ever? No. No, you have to actively disavow him. Why do they do that? Because they want to isolate anyone who criticizes Israel and make them feel toxic and untouchable, so that no one agrees with them, and then they could cancel the hell out of them and eject them from the national conversation. So this is like Israeli propaganda 101. And if you're on the right wing and you're now experiencing this for the first time, give me a call. I'll tell you the whole playbook they're gonna run against you, okay?
Totally.
And how they're gonna try to ruin your career and your life. Everybody in mainstream media knows it. That's why they never criticize Israel. Why do you think do you think every cable news anchor is a monster who thinks murdering 20,000 Palestinian kids is no big deal? No, they all know it's terrible, but they're scared to death of losing their multi-million-dollar job because there's a bunch of thugs inside this country that are pro-Israel and are on a warpath to eliminate anyone who disagrees. Now, finally, guys, the most important thing here is why Megyn Kelly is refusing their demands. And Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly have made reference to this before. They said when they were on Fox News, it was different. Why is it different? Now, I'll explain to you why it's different. Because at Fox News, you have a $20 million contract, and Rupert Murdoch loves and serves Israel. So, you know, if you criticize Israel, you're gonna lose your $20 million a year contract. So that, shh. But now that they run their own company, as she said, in their own show, they have to serve the audience. So if they say things that are popular, they make more money. If they say things that are unpopular, they make less money. They have less viewers, etc. So now their incentives are in the right place. Make your actual audience happy, not some rando foreign government, because your boss, a media executive, loves Israel, right? By the way, Rupert Murdoch is not Jewish, so this has nothing to do with religion. There's a bunch of people who are pro-Israel in this country that are such giant zealots that they will eliminate anyone on behalf of Israel. But now they can't eliminate Megyn Kelly. She has her own show. They can't eliminate Tucker. They can't eliminate us. And it's driving them crazy. And I love it. That's right, Anna. Freedom. Hashtag freedom.